Our vigil holders, Linda Smith and Lana and Andy, will offer our interfaith candle lighting, which is something we do each week to remind us that there's wisdom everywhere from all the world's great religious and spiritual traditions. If we'll open ourselves to it, we can learn from it even now and use it in our own lives. And the kids are obviously with Stephanie in the garden today. She's got her garden hat on. Do we have any, or are they already out there in the dirt?
They might be. There will be tomatoes. Take them. Please take them.
Oh yes, please take the tomatoes. Well, we bless you and whatever kids are outside with you today as you play in the dirt in the garden. A couple of announcements and then we'll really get started here. This is your last chance to join the Foundations class, which is meeting on Tuesday nights at 6:30 with the fabulous Becky Victor as facilitator. This is a really life-changing class that will help you create your own individualized spiritual practice, that will help you learn how to think differently so that you then begin to experience differently, and a whole bunch more. It closes after this Tuesday, September 18th. So sign up now if you were interested in taking that class. You will love it. I think I can guarantee that. And then Thursday the 20th is the lunch bunch, which there's on the calendar page of your bulletin insert. There's a lot of information about the lunch bunch. Meets 11 o'clock on Thursday. And Saturday, game night and potluck is back here. Woo! Yes. 6 to 9 p.m. If you have a game you want to play, bring that. There'll be games. There'll be bring something to share. Kids old enough to play the games are encouraged to join in. It's really a fun evening.
What night is that?
Saturday.
Saturday what?
The 22nd. 6 to 9 p.m. in the social hall. And then in 2 weeks, September 30th, one of our third-year ministerial students, the guy from Chicago, Russ Laguerre, who's, I don't know, 30-something, 35, something like that. He's an amazing guy, and he'll be here to speak to you on Sunday, and then afterwards he'll be offering a workshop called Set Your Whole Self Free. Mark your calendars and don't miss Russ Laguerre. He's pretty special. And then on October 7th is the Mandala Workshop, which is a whole being spiritual practice. It's Modi, Bind, and Soul. Yeah. I said that twice. It's body, mind, and soul. It's a wonderful art, creative, but it's also very contemplative and meditative. And that facilitator, Kathy Roush, is just amazing. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to attend that workshop, just put your name over on the sign-up sheet so we can make sure we've got enough materials for you. That would be very helpful to us. And finally, our practitioners are here after the service to pray with you. If you would like prayer for anything at all, they are all extremely skilled and experienced in seeing the spiritual truth even when we can't. And so they are more than willing to spend a few minutes with you on Sunday. It's a gift to you with their deep love. So you can also, of course, write a written prayer request and put it in the prayer chest that's there by the back door. Or you can call the prayer line, and the number is on the back of the bulletin cover. Please take advantage of that gift from the practitioners. And now it's time for some more music. We're going to hear Becky sing People Get Ready.
We light the first candle in honor of Islam. At every moment, a person must feel Allah's existence and closeness and pray. For only someone who is cognizant of Allah's existence acknowledges the meaning and the importance of prayer. Prayer is an intimate and personal bond between people and Allah. We light the second candle in honor of Judaism. Prayer, what the Talmud calls a labor of the heart, is unanswerable to the heart alone. The third candle, we light the third candle in honor of Christianity. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer. With thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds. We light the fourth candle in honor of Sikhism. Prayer means an active yearning of the soul to feel one with God, who is always active and patient, who is always hopeful. Prayer should therefore refresh our spirit and make us ready to do God's will. This can be done if we first commune ourselves with the God revealed in history and reverently watch the organic growth of divinity in humankind. We light the fifth candle in honor of Buddhism. We feel disconnected and afraid. We long for the comfort and peace that comes from belonging to something larger and more powerful. While prayer may suggest a dualism of self and other, in my experience, when we fully inhabit our longing, it can carry us to the tender and compassionate presence that is our own awakened nature. We light the sixth candle in honor of Native American religions. May the stars carry your sadness away. May the flowers fill your heart with beauty. May hope forever wipe away your tears, and above all, may silence make you strong. We light the final candle in honor of African traditions, spiritual traditions. And the beginning was God. Today is God. Tomorrow will be God. Who can make an image of God? God has no body. God is the word which comes out of your mouth. That word, it is no more. It is past, and still it lives. So is God. Today's reading, our September theme is Spiritual Mind Treatment, the feeling. Make each treatment complete. Each time a treatment is given, the practitioner should feel that it is complete and perfect, that it is finished and done. The treatment is not complete until the practitioner's own consciousness accepts the verdict as final and perfect. In actual experience, the practitioner may have to do this day after day over a period of time. What he does in practice is to make each treatment complete, to draw a final conclusion in each treatment, and then be willing to keep on until the case is met. That is by Ernest Holmes. So if you can just take this within that inner sanctuary for a few minutes of contemplation. So how good it is to know that we have only this one power, and that power is the power of God that lives and breathes through us, as us, and around us at all times. Is the very essence of our own soul. It is woven into that divine tapestry of our own being. And so I know that that same energy, that same love and light of God is orchestrating this whole entire surface. With our band, with Reverend Cece's message, with the children's church, and every single person in this congregation. I know that it is absolutely perfect. It is in divine order and divine right action. And I give such thanks. Thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And together we say, and so it is.
So today we get into some real meaty stuff. We're exploring this spiritual practice, affirmative prayer, that we call spiritual mind treatment, because we're treating our consciousness to a new idea. So today we're going to look at some of the real paradoxes that are inherent in spiritual practice. And paradox is tough. We don't like it. We don't like it very much as human beings. But paradox, in my view, is where the juice is. So we're going to get to it. You know, paradox simply means that something is true, and then something over here that seems to be directly contradictory to that true thing is also true at the same time. And we don't like that. Our human brain says, no, that can't be true. But it is simply the yes and rather than the either or. The worldly realm always tries to be either or. It's either yes or no. It's either A or B. It's either light or dark. It's either black or white. It's either true or false. But once we find ourselves on the spiritual path and we start thinking about this life, this capital L life that created everything that is, when we start thinking about this vast, all-encompassing spirit that is infinite and eternal, it must be yes and, because it contains everything, right? It can't be either or. It is all things. It is eternal and infinite. And so yes and is the only truth there could be about something that is eternal and infinite. We come to see that that must be true about spirit. And once we are on the spiritual path, we also find that we too live in both realms. We live in the human finite world of either or, and we live in the infinite spiritual realm of yes and. And so paradox is simply part of life on the spiritual path. And the thing that makes it so juicy is that once we learn how to kind of hold those two things that seem to be opposites, but they're both true, once we learn to stand in that place and hold them, our consciousness expands exponentially, I think. Because it requires us to stand there and hold these two things with such compassion and such gentleness for ourselves and for everyone else involved. So paradox is really juicy, rich territory. The first paradox of prayer, I think, arises when we don't see immediate results, right? We think nothing's happening. And so we begin to say, it's not happening. What is wrong here? We pray and then we go about our day and nothing seems to change, and we're back in the same rut we were in before we started praying about it, and we start to think, I must not be praying right, or God must not love me the way he loves, she loves, it loves other people, or maybe this is all malarkey. Maybe prayer doesn't work at all. That is the paradox right there, because we know, on the one hand, that our deepest selves are part of this eternal being, right? And we can also, on the other hand, sense with our human senses something that is temporarily true. It is in that moment, both of those things are true. We can become completely convinced in a moment of spiritual practice, meditation, contemplation, prayer, visioning. We can become completely convinced that the universe is indeed governed by spiritual laws, and that there is indeed this one life that we're part of, and that is all that we are, and that we have indeed aligned ourselves with those spiritual laws, and that what we seek has already come to pass, and it is all good, and so it is, right? We get there, we arrive at that place, and 5 minutes later, or maybe 5 seconds later, it's like, what if that happens? Well, what if I didn't pray hard enough? What if I didn't pray for the right thing? What if I left out a step? Right? We do that all the time. We're human beings. That's what we do. We seem to truly be of two minds sometimes. And that's what happens with any spiritual practice. When we meditate, we find this deep, abiding peace, and then we drive to work and we're in traffic. And the peace goes right out the window. Or when we're visioning, and we see this wonderful vision, and we come back to our desks and think, there's no possible way I can get from here to there, right? Or we're contemplating and we feel we've arrived at this beautiful understanding, and 10 minutes later we've forgotten it entirely, and we're wondering what's going on here. It is what happens to us as we walk the spiritual path, which is human and divine at the same time. There's a paradox right there. Both of those are true at the same time. Goodness, what a paradox. And so we've all been there. We have all been there. The spiritual self knows all is deeply and truly well. And the human self goes nuts because it's not the way it's supposed to look. It's not coming in the time I want it to come. It's not the right color. It's not the right person. It doesn't sound right. Whatever. It does not look the way we expected it to look. And so we figure it's not happening. It takes a lot of courage to stay there. This is the thing about paradox that's difficult. It takes a lot of courage to stay there in the middle of it and not give up. And it takes a lot of spiritual insight to stand right in the paradox and not run off with the frustration and the anger and the pain, but to keep bringing ourselves back to calmness and centeredness and remembrance that truth with a capital T is truth with a capital T. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of spiritual insight to do that. In today's reading, is it in a reading in here or is it? Yeah, it kind of is. He says it a little better somewhere else, but basically what he's telling us in today's reading is that what's necessary in our prayer is that we accept. We accept. In our own consciousness, we accept that our prayer has been answered right then and right there. In our own consciousness, we accept that we're in the right place, that the fruits of our spiritual practice are here and now. And then Holmes says, in actual experience, the practitioner, which is you and me, because anyone who is seeking to align himself or herself with spiritual principle is a practitioner. In actual experience, the practitioner may have to do this day after day over a period of time. Yes, Ernest, it's true, we do, because we're human beings, right? Sometimes we have to do it over and over a period of time because we waver and we fret. And the paradox is, yes, our prayer has already been answered in the moment it's prayed, and yes, we're not seeing it yet in our world. So we go back and revisit it in spiritual practice again. Because we're praying not to change God's mind. We're not pleading with some entity out there somewhere to please, please, please get us out of this one, or please, please, please grant our wish. We're praying to get our own mind's house in order. We're praying to align our own thinking with truth. We're praying to change our own consciousness. And that's what doesn't happen in a moment, much of the time. In another little pamphlet that Ernest Holmes wrote, he said, simply stated, prayer is the affirmation and acceptance in our experience of the perfection, the good, the harmony, and the abundance which must exist in the Creator of all that is. It must exist in God, right? Otherwise we wouldn't see the universe that we see. And sometimes we have to pray over and over and over again, day after day after day, to convince ourselves that that's true. Because we're establishing a new pathway of thinking, a new pathway of believing about the situation. We keep reminding ourselves that we're part of this one, the Creator of all there is, this thing that fills the universe. And that's why we sometimes have to do it again and again and again. Because there's a part of us that, have you all seen that little thing on Facebook where it's a woman and she's doing affirmations and her face is kind of warped, probably to protect her identity. And there's another little video of her over here, even more warped, and she says, I am whole, perfect, and complete. No, you're not. Abundance is mine. No, it isn't. It goes on and on that way in every affirmation. She has this little demon voice saying, you're wrong, you're bad, you're terrible. I know her, don't you? And I know that little voice, that one that counters my affirmations and the things that I come to in prayer and contemplation and meditation. It says, no, you know, it's that same voice. I don't know where it came from. I don't care at this point. I just want it to be quiet. But it's there. And so what we're trying to do is overcome the neural pathways of that little voice and accept the capital T truth about ourselves. We build a sense of acceptance in our own minds, that this is the truth of who we are. Acceptance is not an easy thing for us humans either. We tend to accept something only when it's right there in our own hand and we're holding it tightly. But the truth of the matter is that we can't hold it tightly. We can't even see it until we accept it, right? We know that. We know that the things come first in our minds and later in our experience. So the human part of us has this a little backwards. And yet, that's what we keep trying to do, is to arrive at the thing before we will accept that the thing is ours. It has to be accepted here before we can hold it in our hands. Holmes defined prayer in a very interesting way in one of his books. He said, prayer is an affirmation resting in the belief that it is in the nature of reality, capital R reality, to express itself through us. From this sense, prayer is an acknowledgement, a statement of acceptance, a belief that the desired thing already is. In such degree as this acknowledgement is complete, petition is transmuted into acceptance. And the mind actually feels that the object of its desire is already an accomplished fact. All of our spiritual practice is seeking to draw us into that state of acceptance. Of acceptance, acknowledgement of that which our deepest selves feel. That we live in the midst of the divine and the divine lives in the midst of us. So how does this play out in life? I think my favorite analogy is weeding. You know, you spend like days and you work really, really hard and you think the weeding is done. And you walk out the door and, oh my God, there's a 4-foot thistle right there in the front yard. You missed it. So you stop and pull it. And a week later you walk out and you go, the whole yard is full of weeds again. There's a whole new crop I have to pull out. If I am very diligent, if I am very, very diligent, pretty soon I am actually done with the weeding until next spring, right? But sometimes prayer is like that. We have to keep weeding and weeding and weeding. And we weed by making the prayer, today's weeding is complete, it's done, woo! And I might have to weed tomorrow. We don't think about that today, we just get up and do it tomorrow, right? We make today's weeding complete. I have a friend, a minister in New Jersey, and she told a story about this. She has a cat named Colette, and Colette was diagnosed with diabetes. And so they told her she was going to have to stick the cat with insulin twice a day, and then she was going to have to check the cat's urine with a sugar strip once a day. And she's a really good practitioner, and so she, I couldn't do that, but you know, we'll do anything for our pets. She really wanted Colette to be well. And so she started praying, doing her spiritual work, and she started shooting the cat with insulin twice a day and checking the urine too. And nothing happened. Nothing budged. And she thought, all of a sudden she thought, this is telling me how much truth I have yet to learn. So she just kept at it. She just kept at it. She just kept at it. She kept giving the cat the insulin and she kept doing the testing, but she kept praying. She kept doing that work. And one day there was only half as much sugar in the cat's urine. And she thought, I know about half as much truth as I need to know. And she just kept going. She just kept at it and she kept at it and she kept at it. And one day there was no sugar in the cat's urine. And eventually, Colette got off insulin, and Colette is still doing very well years later. That happens. It's a wonderful thing. She had to continue to build her understanding and acceptance that a cat could get well of that spiritual truth. Whether it's a medical diagnosis or a bank statement, whether it's a problem at work or a relationship problem, every single prayer has to be a complete one. We have to arrive at the place where we really feel, for that moment, we really feel that acceptance. We come away from the prayer thinking, yes, I am in God and God is in me and God works for me by working through me and I am happy and grateful and all is well, and so it is. It has to be complete. If 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 days later, there is this thing in our brain again, we have to go back and do it again. We have to go back and do it again. We have to continue to seek that feeling of being done. We make each prayer complete in and of itself. We can't do it any other way. Because if we don't, if we are thinking, well, I'm going to pray today, I'm going to pray tomorrow, I'm going to pray the day after that, I'm going to keep praying until this is done, we've never arrived at that feeling of acceptance. We have to take the acceptance that's here now. That is true. Knowing that it may also be true that tomorrow we have to do it again. This is another way of holding that whole paradox of human and divine. Both are true. How do we know when the weeding is really done? When no more weeds come up, right? When we have arrived at the results of our prayer, whether it takes 5 days, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 years. We keep praying till we know enough truth. And there's another paradox about prayer I want to talk about. This divine side of us knows that always, 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 all is truly well. That's what the divine self knows. That no matter what, all is truly well. The human self says, oh yeah, let me tell you how not well it is. And it'll go on with its laundry list of what's wrong, right? It's a biological part of us. We came from little tiny animals who there were lots of large creatures around that could step on you at any time. So we're hyper alert to anything that could go wrong. Those are both true. The human self also demands that things turn out according to our expectation. We don't like it when it looks different or feels different. And we forget that sometimes there is a greater truth to be accounted for. And so because of that greater truth, the results of our prayer look different than we think they should. Not long ago, a friend was diagnosed with a very fast terminal illness, and I wanted her to be healed. I did. So I prayed for healing. I prayed so that I could see in my mind's eye the astonishment of our physicians as everything came back clear and clean. I prayed and felt the joy that I felt and the joy that my friend felt at her healing. But as the months ticked by, I could see she was getting sicker, not better. And I just kept praying. Over a couple of days, suddenly she got markedly worse, and then she made her transition. And that's not the first time that's happened in my life. I've been through that with friends before, more than once. I have also experienced some miraculous healings. Miraculous with quotes around it. So what is the absolute truth there? Is the truth that prayer doesn't work, or is the truth that sometimes my human expectations are out of alignment with the laws of the universe? What I do know is this. Every time I prayed for my friend, I felt her wholeness. She felt good knowing that I was praying. I could visit with her and see her as whole and vibrant and perfect and beautiful, instead of someone who was terminally ill. No topic was off limits. There was no fear. There was no pain that had to be disguised or not discussed. There was nothing between us but love. And I also know, as all the mystics tell us, that there comes a time when this vehicle, this body, is no longer useful and the spirit moves on. That there is another expression of this divine life somewhere else. So there was a healing in my consciousness. It didn't look the way I wanted it to look. I expected it to look. There was a healing in her consciousness. And she told me that it wasn't the way she expected it to look either. She expected it to be much scarier than it was, and I expected it to result in a different outcome. The healing of my expectations was the healing that reminded me that sometimes, despite appearances, all is really well. Prayer is the affirmation and acceptance in our experience of the perfection, the good, the harmony, and the abundance which must exist in the Creator of all that is. And I repeat, it takes courage to stand there. It takes spiritual insight to stand in the place of paradox and allow it all to be well. Just let it be well. It takes courage and insight to make each prayer complete and then let it go. And it takes courage and insight to come back the next day and say, I need to pray again about this. And tomorrow maybe too. It takes courage and insight to let ourselves strive to be in that place of oneness and allness all the time. It takes courage to accept before we see. But we all have the courage and insight we need. We're born that way. We're made that way. We've got it. Because this is how we change our consciousness. We change the patterns of our thinking. And then and that changes the patterns of our belief. And the patterns of our belief are the thing that moves that thing we're seeking from acceptance to reality. This is also the way that we make love larger in the world. By staying in the place of acceptance of the goodness of everyone around us, the fundamental wonderfulness of the world we live in. It's how we remind ourselves that heaven is not something we get to someday, somewhere. It's right here, right now, in each one of us. And so let's pray together. Let's just pause and remember that fundamental truth that all the mystics of all the ages have told us. And it's something that we feel too, deep, deep, deep within. That there is this oneness in the universe. Everything is woven together. There is a life and a light and an energy in the universe that is eternal and universal and present everywhere and present in every moment and powerful enough to cause this whole universe to come into being and delicate enough to make our planet stay right where it needs to be in orbit around the sun so that life could happen. It is that same power that is fine-tuned enough to regulate our breath and our heartbeat, and yet infinite enough to push the universe and time and space out ahead of itself in order that the universe may expand. There is something in this universe that is greater than we are, and yet it is all that we are. We are part of it, we are made from it, and we are the place it shows up on this planet. It makes itself known by means of each one of us. And so what I know in this moment is that each one of us can feel that from time to time, that truth, that deep truth about ourselves when we pause and are quiet. When we allow it, it shows up as us. And it reminds us that all is truly well. So that when we come back into the day-to-day world and things are maybe not what we expect them to be, we're able to hold that paradox with ease and grace and compassion and love for ourselves and for everyone. And so that we keep remembering, we keep practicing, we keep reminding ourselves that God is all there is and we are part of that. And what I know to be the absolute truth about us is that we get it. We get it. Yes, sometimes we need to be reminded the next day, but we get it. We feel it. We feel our breath being one with the breath of the universe. We sense our heartbeats being the pulse of everything. And as we do that, we know that we are the place that life shows up. And that God is more than willing to say yes to us. Whether it looks the way our human minds expect or not, the Spirit, the universe, is always saying yes to us. And so we simply give great thanks for that. And I also give great thanks for this community and all those in it who are brave and courageous and spiritually discerning and insightful and beautiful and wonderful and perfect. And as we come together to remind each other of that truth about ourselves, we grow, we change, we enlarge, we expand, we evolve. And it is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so in deep gratitude, I simply release this. I let it be so. I accept it as true. And in this moment, to anchor this prayer, we say together, and so it is.
Just a thread, a simple thread in this glorious web of life. We are all just drops
we now have an opportunity to support all that goes on here at the center, where we, come together in spiritual community to help us remember who we are and to provide us with those tools to keep on awakening to our own spiritual magnificence. So I invite you to take your gift in your heart or your hands and affirm with me. I know the activity of abundance.
I know the activity of abundance
In my life and in this center.
in my life and in this center.
I give and receive generously
I give and receive generously
from this everlasting flow of good.
flow of good.
And so it is.
And so it is.
I want to know where I can buy one of those.
Yeah.
It's in your head, man.
Yep.
It's right here.
If you left a green hoodie here, someone accidentally took it home and washed it and brought it back to you. So I'm going to put it I'm going to put it back there on the coat rack. If it's yours, there it is. I've done the same thing. I took somebody's jacket home one day. It was awful. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who's here this morning for creating the energy that's here and being together with all of us, and our ushers and greeters and our practitioners and our welcome team and the Higher Mind Band. Dan, you continue to amaze me always. Thank you all very much. And all of you. So let's do our closing affirmation, and our closing song is Into the Light. So repeat after me. In this moment, I accept that I am one with the One.
I am one with the One.
I accept the good
I accept the good
that must be
that must be
all that God is.
all that God is.
I am grateful
I am grateful
as my good
as my good
shows up in my life.
shows up in my life.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Have a great week, everybody.
1, 2.